In February 1959, in the Ural Mountains of Russia, 9 hikers met a fate so bizarre and terrifying that even the Soviet government could only label it the result of a compelling natural force. But nothing about this story is as straightforward as it seems. It all began on January 23, 1959, when a group of 10 hikers set out on a daring winter trek through Russia's unforgiving mountains. One of them, stricken by illness, turned back, leaving the remaining 9 to face the unforgiving wilderness. They had planned to check in after 3 weeks, but when no word came by February 20th, a search party was dispatched. Over the following weeks, rescuers uncovered the first chilling clues. The bodies of 5 hikers were found scattered across the snow, their appearances more bizarre than any natural disaster could explain. One had even bitten off part of his own knuckle, as if in a final act of desperation or confusion. As the snow began to melt and the ice slowly gave way to reveal hidden horrors, the remaining 4 bodies emerged. Their injuries were even more horrific: a fractured skull, a twisted neck, and in some cases, missing eyes, and even a tongue. What truly happened on that deadly trek in the Ural Mountains remains one of history's most baffling mysteries. The bizarre, gruesome fate of these 9 hikers has sparked wild theories, from secret military tests to catastrophic natural events, and even encounters with creatures out of this world. This is the infamous Dyatlov Pass Incident, a mystery that refuses to be solved and continues to haunt those who dare to uncover its secrets. Alright, so let's talk about the Dyatlov Pass Incident, one of the most chilling and mysterious tragedies in modern history. The pass itself, located in the Ural Mountains, is named after the leader of that ill-fated expedition, Igor Dyatlov. He was a 23-year-old engineering student at the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Soviet Russia, and he wasn't alone on this journey. He planned the trip with 8 other students from the institute, all in their early 20s, and one older sports instructor in his late 30s. These weren't amateurs. They were experienced hikers, well prepared for the challenges of the rugged terrain. But here's where things take a dark turn. About 5 days into the trek, one of the hikers, Yuri, made a decision that would ultimately save his life. He was suffering from a sciatica flare-up, and the pain was too much to bear. Reluctantly, he turned back, leaving the group to continue without him. Little did he know, this choice would spare him from the horrifying fate that awaited the others. Because just a few days later, around February 1st, the 9 remaining hikers pitched their tent for the last time. When a search party finally located the tent, the scene was bizarre, to say the least. The tent was collapsed and buried under snow, but inside everything was eerily undisturbed. The hikers' boots, clothes, and equipment were neatly arranged, and food was even sliced up on a plate, as if they were about to sit down for a meal. But here's the strange part. The tent had been slashed open from the inside. A seamstress later confirmed that the cuts were made from within, as if the hikers had been frantically slashing their way out in a desperate bid to escape the horrors inside. The first 2 bodies they found were those of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishchenko, lying several hundred yards away from the tent. They were in their underwear, huddled next to the remains of a fire. Krivonishchenko's body showed signs of burns, and he had even bitten off a piece of his own hand, as if he had been in excruciating pain or gripped by sheer terror. As the search continued, they found more bodies scattered across the frozen landscape. Igor Dyatlov and Zenaida Kolmogorova, one of the 2 female hikers, were discovered in a different location, their positions suggesting they had been trying to make their way back to the tent when they died. Rustem Slobodin's body was found nearby, also appearing to have been attempting to return to the tent before succumbing to the cold. So, when the search party first found the bodies of the 5 hikers, it seemed like hypothermia was the clear culprit. And if you know anything about hypothermia, you know it can do some really bizarre things to the human body. It can cause erratic behavior, confusion, and even something called paradoxical undressing, where victims start stripping off their clothes because in their final moments they feel like they're burning up, even though they're literally freezing to death. That might explain why some of the hikers were found in their underwear, huddled near a fire that couldn't save them. But here's the thing, there were still 4 bodies missing. And when those bodies were finally discovered in May of that year, the story took a much darker turn. An indigenous Mansi hunter stumbled upon what looked like a snow den, and inside, rescue workers found the remains of Alexander Kolovatov, Nikolai Thibault Brignol, the sports instructor Semyon Zolotaryov, and Lyudmila Dubinina, the second female student on the trip. Now, for 3 of these hikers, hypothermia wasn't the cause of death. No, their injuries were far more violent and far more mysterious. Nikolai had a skull fracture so severe that there were pieces of bone embedded in his brain. Semyon and Lyudmila had crushed chests, injuries so massive that experts compared the force required to that of a car crash. And then there were the details. Both Semyon and Lyudmila's eye sockets were empty, and Lyudmila was missing her tongue. How does that even happen, you might ask? The answer is simple. No one knows. Despite the horrifying nature of these injuries, the initial investigation couldn't determine that a crime had taken place. In fact, the official conclusion was that the hikers had died from a compelling natural force. But what kind of natural force crushes chests, fractures skulls, and removes tongues? It's a conclusion that raises more questions than it answers. And then there's the radiation. When investigators examined the hikers' clothing, they found traces of radiation. This could be explained by the fact that 2 years earlier, there had been a nuclear incident in the area known as the Kishtim disaster. One of the hikers had lived in the contaminated zone, and another had even helped with the cleanup. But still, the discovery fueled speculation that the Soviet government was covering something up. Was this some kind of weapons testing gone wrong? A secret military experiment? Or something else entirely? In 2019, the Russian government reopened the investigation into the Dyatlov Pass Incident, reigniting interest in this decades-old mystery. Andrei Kuryakov, the prosecutor leading the new inquiry, proposed a theory that seemed to offer some explanation: a slab avalanche. Now, the slope where the hikers had pitched their tent wasn't steep enough for a traditional avalanche, but Kuryakov suggested that a slab of snow could have still broken loose and slid over the tent. This, he theorized, might have panicked the hikers into thinking a larger avalanche was coming. In their terror, they could have cut their way out of the tent and fled into the freezing night without even grabbing their boots. Kuryakov speculated that the group ran to what they thought was a safe distance, started a fire, and dug a snow den for shelter. But then, disaster struck again. The snow den collapsed on those inside, crushing them and causing the horrific injuries found on the bodies. As for the missing eyes and tongue, scavenging animals could have been responsible. Those outside the den, they simply froze to death. But here's where it gets interesting. In 2021, 2 researchers in Switzerland, Johann Gaume and Alexander Puzrin, decided to put Kuryakov's theory to the test. Using a mathematical model, they analyzed the location of the tent and the weather conditions at the time. Their conclusion? A slab avalanche was indeed possible. But, and this is a big but, they stopped short of saying it definitively happened that way. We do not claim that now we have a final explanation of what happened, Puzrin, a professor of geomechanics, said, but we added plausibility to the avalanche theory. Even experts like Ethan Green, director of the Colorado Avalanche Information Center, admit that while the theory is possible, it's far from certain. Over the years, theories about what happened on that mountain have ranged from the plausible to the downright wild. Some people think it was an avalanche, others blame the KGB or the CIA. And then there are those who point to Yetis. Yes, Yetis, because why not? But here's the thing, no one knows for sure. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most baffling and haunting mysteries of all time. And as you sit here, listening to this story, you can't help but wonder, what kind of compelling natural force could have caused such devastation? The Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most baffling mysteries of all time. And for those of you who've stayed until the end of this story, I'll leave you with this. Don't believe anyone who tells you they've solved it, because the truth? It's still out there, buried somewhere in the snow and shadows of the Ural Mountains. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's greatest mysteries, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We release new videos every week, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay curious.